If you like going where fewer people go, if you love the sense of freedom, adventure, exploration, if you'd like to create photos that make you stand out, then you'll find this video particularly interesting. I am in the incredible Cappadocia in Turkey, and today I'm going to talk about my secret weapon for travel and documentary photography. What is it? It's this, my Land Rover. All right, let me explain. It's not necessarily this car or any vehicle in particular. It's a vehicle in general. So many of my recent photos, much of my drone footage, I could not have made them without my own vehicle. So now when I think of a place to travel to, one of my first questions is, can I drive there? Or can I get my own transport there? In this video, I'll tell you about what having your own mode of transportation can mean for your photography and for your travels. I'll talk about the main benefits of having a vehicle, but also the disadvantages, as well as some really important things to consider. By the end, you should get a good idea of whether you need a vehicle, whether to buy or to rent, what kind of vehicle, and of course, how you can use that vehicle for your travel and documentary photography. My own story, real quick. I've had a few travel vehicles. Started with motorbikes. I traveled around India, the Philippines, Ethiopia, on motorbikes that I bought and later sold. Took a 25-year-old Volkswagen around Eastern Europe. He wasn't in great shape. Here's a welder in rural Romania reattaching the exhaust onto it. A few years later, I discovered that it was possible to travel to Africa with a car. My financial situation was a bit better, so I bought a Land Rover Defender to go around Africa with my wife. The birth of our daughter changed our plans, and the plans keep changing. We were meant to go in this Land Rover to Mongolia, but now I'm in Turkey on my way to Bulgaria, where I'm gonna park the car for a few years. The new plan is to spend a while in South America, where I have my Toyota Land Cruiser, currently in Peru. The main reason why I share my own story is to highlight just how important a vehicle is to the way that I travel and to my photography. Now, to the main benefits of having your vehicle. The first benefit, having your own vehicle is one way to separate yourself from the crowds. In a world saturated with imagery, it is becoming more difficult to have an edge, to make photos that stand out amongst millions. Your own vehicle, whether bought or rented, can help you gain that edge. You can use it to seek out and to photograph subjects that haven't been overdone. Or if you're in a famous place like Cappadocia, a vehicle helps you discover lesser known spots or different ways of showing what's familiar. The simple act of going somewhere that's not easy for the masses to access, or maybe not easy to access at that particular time, well, this already creates the potential for a photograph that will stand out. The next benefit is all about getting away from areas of mass tourism. With your own vehicle, it's easier to get away from the tourist track. As a rule, people are more photography friendly, more genuine, away from areas of mass tourism. Generally, less tourists means less cameras, less commotion. I'm often asked questions like, how do people react when you photograph them? Do they ask for money? Don't they get annoyed? No. Away from areas of mass tourism, everyone is more normal. People generally don't mind being photographed. I don't feel like I'm annoying anyone in such places. In fact, some people really open up and let me into their lives. Often they're curious about me. I, of course, prefer to work in such situations. Sometimes you don't need to go far from those tourist hotspots to find them. Other times you do, and that's where a vehicle comes in.
I want to quickly tell you about my educational website. It's called The Photographic Process. You can join it absolutely free and receive instant access to case studies and ebooks, natural light, people photography post-processing, a condensed behind-the-scenes look at my award-winning photos. This is just some of the material that you'll find.
Here's a really important benefit. You control your time and your movement. It's morning time, almost 7 a.m, and I'm here to capture the famous Cappadocia balloons going up into the air. it was crucial to be here on time, before they all go airborne. It is a cliché, but being in the right place at the right time can make or break a photo. And you can't always depend on drivers or on public transport to get you to where you need to be on time.
Had I come even a little late, as I actually did a couple of times, I would have missed all of this.
The balloons, the light, and I was lucky enough to have a few chances to be here again. But if you don't, then you miss it forever. On a different note, depending on others for your transportation can make you vulnerable. You become an easy target for scam artists and criminals at bus and train stations. Having your own vehicle, having control over your time and over your movement can keep you away from risks. You can find photos along the road. Around this region, there are some spectacular sights. If I see something like these amazing rock formations, I want to be able to take advantage photographically. But even if I don't take photos, it's just awesome to be able to stop whenever you see something that fascinates you. And in general, there are so many photos to be made along roads. I've mentioned this a few times in my past videos. I meet countless fascinating characters along roads. In some countries, something is always happening on the road, around roads. I even shot a whole project on Himalayan road workers in India. Sometimes there are magical, spectacular situations that you come across along the road. The photos you are seeing now are the results of random finds while I was driving. Your vehicle can be a scouting tool. I often drive or ride around and scout for places which can give me great photos. Like right now, I'm searching for the most photogenic rock formations. I'll take some photos, but the main aim is to mark them in my GPS app and to come back when the light is more dramatic or when something is happening, like balloons flying. Or in other cases, it could be that I find out that shepherds take their animals through a certain area. Stuff like that. On my last trip around Colombia, I had an interesting development. I gave a lift to a mother and son who flagged me down along a rural road. I became friends with the family and an entire photo project was born. A car can be a home and an office on wheels. This isn't for everyone, but it's the way that I've been traveling lately, and I want to explain why. For me, it's very important to be able to stay in remote places for days at a time. This allows me to get closer to the subjects that interest me and to create deeper and more varied photos. For example, with this nomad family in Mauritania, I saw different aspects of their lives during the week or so that I stayed. Also, their trust in me grew, and I was able to get different kinds of intimate photos. When I'm in nature, I can get the photos and the footage without worrying about having to get back to a hotel. I can make these videos in quiet places where I can focus clearly for days, even weeks if I need to. And then there are all the practicalities. As you can see, I've got a rooftop tent in which I can sleep comfortably. I can recharge my batteries in the car. There's also a fridge inside, cooking utensils, everything that I need. It really is a home and an office which I can take virtually everywhere. You can always stay the night in a car. Back to the idea of not having to return to a hotel. This is actually one of the biggest advantages of having a car. On a motorbike, I would often regret not being able to spend the night at a remote place. You can't always take a tent with you, but that extra hour or two can give you some spectacular photographs. Like here, in just a little bit, the light will get really spectacular. I'm gonna capture that and I'm gonna shoot a time lapse too. Here is a better example. As you can see, nothing inspirational during late afternoon, but this is what came in exactly the same place just a couple of hours later. Another example. Certain things can only happen in the mornings. These condors only come out around 7 to 9 a.m. I stayed the night in my car nearby to get up early, not to miss them. Now, you don't need a setup like mine with a rooftop tent, the fridge inside, and all of that sort of stuff. For a potentially great photograph, I'm sure that most of us can suffer for the night and sleep with the seat reclined or in the back. A real quick word about my behind-the-scenes travel photography course. You may have heard about it, and it's just as useful whether you have your own vehicle or not. The course is an in-depth look at the entire creative and photographic process, from in the field to the digital darkroom. A lot is covered in it, all with the purpose of helping you grow as a photographer. The disadvantages of having your own vehicle. Let's get the disadvantages of a motorbike out of the way first. They're pretty obvious. Even with a larger rig, you can't bring much. Sucks if it rains. It is more dangerous. I had a pretty minor accident once, and even that kept me out of action for an entire month. With any vehicle, you can take the really wrong way. You can get lost, even with a GPS, or you can take a road that's dangerous. No app tells you about the condition of the road or what you might encounter on it. With a car, that freedom in the more remote places is great, but you'll lose much of it in the cities. In the cities, a car means extra hassle. Finding parking can be hell. Owning a car can be really expensive, especially a 4x4 truck, if you use it off-road, which is the point of an off-road vehicle, in my opinion. Something inevitably breaks off, something always needs replacing. Less expenses with regular cars or cars that don't go off-road, but there are always unexpected costs that come up. Here's one disadvantage that really surprised me. It's hard, like really hard sometimes, to find good 4x4 mechanics anywhere in the world. Through all my travels with my trucks, I've visited about 50 different mechanics, and I'd say that only a handful of them, like 5 or 7, actually improved my car. One last major disadvantage that's really frustrating. Leaving a vehicle that you own behind can be hard or impossible. This is a big reason why I'm no longer doing 2 parallel journeys, one in this car to Mongolia and the other around South America in a Land Cruiser. You can leave your car in some places. Also, an EU vehicle like this Land Rover can be left anywhere in the EU with no issues, hence I'm leaving it in Bulgaria. But in most other cases, if you want to go and leave your vehicle behind, it's either not possible, you have to leave the country with your vehicle, or it requires a ton of paperwork and jumping through hoops. I had to do that to leave my Land Cruiser in Peru. So, what's best for you? I hope the info that I've provided has given you some ideas on what might be best for you. In any case, here are some more thoughts and advice. Get a motorbike if you want to spend less, or you can get a really good deal, whether on renting or on buying. Get a motorbike if you're in places of dense traffic, if there are plenty of places to stay, and of course, if you're adventurous and daring. Get a 4x4 truck like one of mine if you want to go the more extreme route, if you want to get to really remote places. Buy a truck if you want to maybe modify it like me and live and work from it for months at a time. Get a regular car, meaning not a 4x4 off-road car, if you want something in between, if you want more comfort than a motorbike, if every now and then you want to spend the night in the car to make the most of a beautiful location. Something to also note, regular cars are more commonly available and they're more economic to rent. And that's the next big decision, to rent or to buy. Despite owning a number of vehicles, I would honestly rather rent than buy. But I travel for extended periods of time, I cross borders. With cars, I like to modify them. So most of the time, renting is not really an option for me. But for most travelers, renting is the best option. And I mean, I always try to rent too. If I'm in Thailand on a family trip, I'll try to rent a scooter. If I do a quick trip somewhere around Europe, I'm going to rent a car. So having a vehicle at your disposal while you travel doesn't need to be as complex as I've made it for myself. With a rented vehicle, a lot of the disadvantages that I've talked about disappear. Of course, so do some of the advantages, but you can't have it all. Now you've seen me talk about the good and the bad of having your own vehicle, a rented vehicle. you know how it can all relate to your photography. The main point here is that your personal vehicle and a degree of freedom is attained pretty easily. It becomes harder when your demands become more complex, like in my case. But for most part, there's no reason that you can't rent a motorbike or a car and head off on a self-driven photographic adventure. That's it from me. If you've enjoyed, please like, subscribe, click that notifications bell, and check out one of these videos before I see you next time.